Despite earning $47 million annually, the courthouse queen had sinister secrets. She was sued for age discrimination by former employees. She fired people for being too old, they said. Others said she avoided particular plaintiffs in order to keep a certain appearance. There was alleged bias and disarray in the workplace behind the justice. Over 20 workers left in just 5 years. 2020 then arrived. As false information regarding brain sickness was circulated by tabloids, she vanished. After retaliating with a $5 million lawsuit, she made an unexpected comeback on streaming in 2025. Her transformation's reality is more unsettling than anyone could have predicted. On October 21, 1942, Judith Susan Blum was born in Brooklyn, New York, while the globe was still engulfed in conflict. Murray and Ethel Blum, her parents, were the type of individuals who, despite hardship, never complained. They established a life together in a metropolis that never slowed down. Murray was a dentist, Ethel worked in an office. At that time, Brooklyn was congested, noisy, and full of families attempting to survive the upheaval of World War II. By 1946, more than 100,000 families in New York City were still waiting for good housing. There was rationing of food, exorbitant rent, and a startling 14% inflation rate in 1947. Though finances were always tight, Judy's father made the most of his meager dental practice. Ethel, her mother, frequently stitched garments out of scrap fabric in order to support the family. Judy, who was just 5 years old in 1947, assisted with household duties as air raid sirens sounded each month like far-off warnings from a world that had not yet calmed down. Her father left home to join the military when she was a newborn. The war was still in full swing in 1943. Because of this, Ethel was left to handle everything by herself in Brooklyn with a toddler during food shortages and blackouts. Even as a 1-year-old, Judy had to deal with the hardships of ration stamps, which only permitted 48 points per month for canned goods. She was fashioned by the stress, responsibilities, and sirens that surrounded her. By 1945, when her father returned, millions of American veterans had changed. Murray wasn't an exception. Now 3 years old, Judy's once peaceful home had become increasingly strained and insecure. At that time, divorce rates were about 50% higher nationwide, and even though her parents remained married, the emotional burden remained. Judy started planning games and supervising other children in the area at the age of 4. She didn't simply mature quickly, she was forced to do so. She was affected by something that happened in 1955. When she was 13, she heard rumors that her grandfather, Murray's father, had been a bootlegger at a get-together with her relatives. In 1932, when unemployment was at 24% due to the Great Depression, he sneaked alcohol across Brooklyn to make ends meet. According to the tale, in order to avoid being caught, he concealed bottles under the floorboards utilizing dental supply routes. When the authorities almost captured him in 1934 during a sweep that caught over 500 people, the family nearly lost everything. Judy couldn't believe it. The tidy existence she believed she knew didn't match with it. But rather than feeling angry about it, she found it fascinating. She began to read up on criminals and court proceedings, including the trial of Al Capone in 1931, and she felt a spark of inspiration. She wanted more than to avoid trouble. Understanding it, controlling it, and possibly stopping it were her goals. Judy was 14 years old in 1956 when she started at Brooklyn's James Madison High School. She immediately made an impression despite the large class size of more than 3,000 kids. She joined the debate club and began winning because of her presence, not because of her grades, which were only about a 2.5 on her GPA. She had won 5 regional titles by 1959, but it wasn't all sunshine and roses. She protested against outmoded dress regulations that forbade girls from wearing slacks by skipping a dozen lessons that year. She organized a walkout of 20 students in 1957 due to poor food in the cafeteria. Teachers were at a loss as to how to interpret her. She debated civil rights issues like segregation years before it was a common topic among high school students, yet she wasn't on the honor roll. She even received detention for fabricating letters to avoid going to the gym, stating that she objected to the uniform on moral grounds. In addition, Judy followed her own principles and never joined a gang that she didn't support, even though gangs were rapidly growing throughout Brooklyn, more than 100 by 1958. She had no intention of making an impression. Judy was just being herself. When the civil rights movement began to tremble across the nation in 1960, Judy moved from Brooklyn to Washington, D.C. She enrolled at American University and declared government as her major. Campuses attempted to restrict women back then as well. Curfews were rigorous. In class, wearing pants was prohibited. And all traces of autonomy were monitored. Judy didn't back down, though. One of the only women to join the Pi Sigma Alpha Honor Society, she openly questioned male lecturers about women's rights. She talked while others remained silent. At a time when the majority of women were still expected to be housewives, secretaries, or nurses, she graduated in 1963, 3 years after entering. What was expected, however, did not interest Judy. What was fair was of interest to her. She went back to New York after graduating and enrolled at New York Law School, where she faced even more challenges. Women accounted for less than 5% of law students nationwide by 1963. There were many looks, inquiries, and instances of casual cruelty in the hallways. She was dismissed by professors. She didn't belong, according to her male peers. But she remained. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 made discrimination in hiring, including sex-based discrimination, illegal under Title VII. Schools hadn't caught up, though. It was all up to Judy to handle alone. During her time in law school, she worked part-time as a legal secretary. It was there that she nearly accidentally came across evidence of corporate fraud. She had to reconsider everything after learning that financial paperwork had been fabricated, even if it never made the news. She had no desire to be just another attorney in a large practice. She desired to take part in something important. She earned her JD in 1965 and passed the New York bar test the first time. It was no trivial matter. At the time, the legal community was still very anti-women, and pass rates were about 70%. Judy applied to numerous firms. At least 5 people flatly rejected her, some of them without even stating why. She used Title VII to threaten legal action before it was a widely used tactic. 5 years prior, in 1972, Judy Sheindlin had quit her position as a corporate lawyer. She put that behind her in order to raise Jamie and Adam. However, a buddy from law school informed her that year about a position in the family court system in New York City. She gambled. Making the choice would put her in the midst of one of the city's most dysfunctional systems. She dealt with thousands of instances involving domestic violence, child abuse, and juvenile crime over the course of the following 5 years. The figure of over 20,000, according to others, probably encompasses her final years as a judge. But the courtroom was harsh in those early days. The 1970s were already a turbulent decade, and she was fighting a crooked system. Her straightforward approach was in opposition to the judge's desire to ignore her. There was a spike in juvenile crime. The goal of the recently approved 1974 Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act was to prevent children from ending up in adult prisons, but its implementation was uneven. At the same time, she was going through her own personal changes. She and Ronald Levy were married for 12 years before they got divorced in 1976. In 1977, a year later, she wed Jerry Sheindlin. It didn't stop her, though. She persisted in her efforts to catch abusers, uncover falsified foster care records, and promote reforms that truly decreased recurrent offenses. She worked in a city where the number of tragic child neglect instances was steadily increasing. In that decade, there was a 20% increase in reports of domestic violence, and she witnessed it from all sides. Her reputation as someone who remained composed in the face of chaos was cemented at this time. She took on a case that altered everything by 1975. A wealthy businessman was charged with child neglect, but most prosecutors would have ignored the case. Judy, however, didn't back down. She prevailed in the case. Even as threats from unknown sources began to come in. She should drop it, some said. She didn't. She startled her colleagues by refusing to play by the rules of power and money. The case occurred immediately following the enactment of the Juvenile Justice Act of 1974. Children were meant to be protected by the law, but when the accused had large sums of money, it didn't always work. The businessman lost custody as a result of Judy's victory and was fined more than $10,000. Particularly to those who believed that the courts would always defend them, that conveyed a message. She began to build a reputation for pursuing the wealthy, but at a personal expense. She was, ironically, going through her own divorce and custody struggle. Her efforts, however, had a significant impact. The local measures that resulted from that one case reduced recidivism by 10%. This halted a harmful loop for the child. Judy took on an even greater task in 1978. A task team devoted to adolescent delinquency invited her to serve as its leader. It was among the most vigorous reform initiatives the city has ever witnessed. She continued to serve as a prosecutor at the time, but she was now in charge of a group that might reveal what wasn't functioning. And the severity of the situation was quickly discovered. Administrators were benefiting off the incarceration of minors, according to her inquiry. In 1980, one man was found guilty after she challenged him immediately. A $50,000 fine was imposed on him. The other 3 were let go. Her efforts reduced recidivism by 15% in just 2 years, but she became a target because she exposed corruption. She received threats. She was betrayed by certain co-workers. She was also balancing her life with her new husband, Jerry, behind the scenes. Despite it, she forced herself to. Her efforts were in line with Senator Birch Bay's federal reforms, but also caused conflict locally. Nevertheless, hundreds of children were spared from being routed into unproductive institutions or sent to adult prisons. Her career almost ended because of the work, but in 1982 she was appointed a judge. In the same year, she was appointed to the Bronx Family Court by Mayor Ed Koch. She had an overwhelming amount of work. She rendered decisions in over 150 instances each week. She eliminated 40% of the court backlog. Despite being severe, her method was effective. She didn't care if she was referred to as a monster by some defense lawyers. She witnessed humanity's darkest side. In custody disputes, parents use their children. Welfare scammers defraud the system. In one instance, a mother even drilled her infant beneath the arms. The case was appalling. Her thoughts turned to the McMartin preschool case in 1983, where fabricated allegations of abuse had gone awry. Judy, however, made decisions that truly safeguarded people, cutting through the lies like those who hesitated. Her courts gained a reputation for proceeding quickly without sacrificing care. In 1986, she was elevated to the position of supervising judge in the family court in Manhattan. She was in the news again that year. She openly criticized the outcome of a child abuse case, what she perceived to be an unreasonably light penalty. Defense lawyers were incensed. She refused to comply with their demands that she be taken out. She gave examples of actual cases, such as the 1983 to 1990 McMartin trial, where millions were squandered and bogus accusations resulted from pushy interviews. She observed similar trends in her own court. People are evading labor, lying, and using youngsters for financial gain. One lawyer with whom she had a heated argument said that their client deserved luxury while on welfare. Judy retorted that she doesn't on my money. Talk like that almost cost her a job. But she became famous as a result. She raised attention to social workers' shortcomings and a system that frequently allows the weakest members of society to slip through the cracks. She was already well known in New York legal circles by 1990, but that year she was made nationally famous by the Los Angeles Times. Their profile of her courtroom highlighted one such case. She made a parent who had neglected his kids perform community service in a shelter for the needy. It was more than just a punishment. It was an empathetic lesson. By that time, she had made decisions in more than 20,000 cases. From mothers who had children solely to receive welfare increases to parents who believed that money could cover up maltreatment, her courtroom had saw it all. She and Jerry got divorced that same year, but they soon got married again. She claimed that the separation helped her focus. More determined. According to the report, she is a legal superhero. It was not incorrect. The first book she authored was in 1993. The title was as direct as she was, "Don't Tell Me It's Pouring and Pee on My Leg." Over 100,000 copies were sold. She exposed unfair court officials, indolent litigants, and those bearing children just for the purpose of receiving benefits. Her tales were taken directly from the courtroom. An unemployed woman requesting accommodation in Manhattan. Children are being used by parents as leverage. Repeatedly, juvenile offenders are running free. She was also critical of social workers, particularly when they mishandled abuse situations. The same trends that had marred the McMartin trial, 360 bogus claims resulting from coercive interviews, were evident to her. Both the audience and the book didn't hold back. They thought it was fantastic. A feature about her was broadcast on 60 Minutes that same year. She was seen in court reprimanding a man for lying under oath. That video went viral. TV producers called all of a sudden. The rest of the nation wanted to watch her live after she overcame lies and handled more than 150 cases per week. The debut of Judge Judy took place in September 1996. When she stepped onto the screen, everything changed, even though it wasn't anticipated to be a hit. Using the same scathing language, she made decisions in actual cases. By the end of the first season, the ratings had increased to 2.1 from a modest 1.5 at the beginning. She quickly outpaced other shows. The first episodes surprised folks. The cases appeared authentic. She prevented anyone from using deception to get through a hearing. A February 2000 biography special acknowledged that the show's success was unexpected. Everyone began to recognize her. The show had an average of around 10 million viewers each day at its height. By 1997's second season, the ratings had risen to 4.3. At 4.4, she finally overtook Oprah in 2009, capping a 10-year dominance. The first episodes surprised folks. The cases appeared authentic. She prevented anyone from using deception to get through a hearing. In a February 2000 biography special, the creators acknowledged that they had not anticipated the show's success. But it did. Everyone began to recognize her. The show had an average of around 10 million viewers every day at its height. The ratings reached 4.3 by 1997's second season. In 2009, she even surpassed Oprah with a score of 4.4. And ending a rule that lasted 10 years. One of the most memorable incidents included a pet custody battle that descended into anarchy. Allegations included fraud, threats of neutering, and assault in a single incident. They were unable to stop watching. Sheindlin was making about $1 million annually at the time, but everything changed when the show became successful. She was receiving an average of 9 million views every day by 2008. She became a TV powerhouse because to her strict decisions on fraud, deception, and animal issues. One of the show's most captivating episodes, which featured a family inheritance dispute that quickly became ugly, aired in 1999. The ratings went up by 20%. When Judy pushed the truth to the forefront, the drama was adored by the audience. Her annual salary at the time was $7.8 million. She would deliver pay demands in sealed envelopes and leave if they weren't fulfilled, shocking CBS officials. But it was successful. By 2001, she was involved in a scam that involved a phony Craigslist car sale. A $7,000 scam was revealed live. Because of the overwhelming public reaction, actual arrests were made outside the concert. They witnessed more than just amusement. Justice was seen by them. Next came 2005. After 10 seasons, she persuaded Hollywood to pay her a startling $25 million annually. It was $30 million 2 years later. She stated unequivocally that she would develop her own show if CBS disagreed. That was a wise choice. By 2010, she outperformed Oprah with 9.6 million daily viewers. She possessed mansions all throughout the nation, amassed a wealth of $500 million, and purchased a jet worth $24 million. Something dramatic occurred behind Judge Judy's scenes in 2007. After being fired, a former associate producer called Karen Needle filed a lawsuit, alleging racism and wrongful termination on the show's part. She said it was discrimination, but Judy and the team strongly disputed this, arguing that performance was the main factor and bias had nothing to do with it. As that storm was intensifying, another one struck. Echoing the same allegations, Jonathan Sebastian, a second producer, filed a lawsuit against the show in December 2007. But Judy didn't give up easily. She prevailed in both cases. She wasn't harmed by the litigation. Instead, they took the opposite action. The ratings were soaring. The nation's most popular syndicated court show, Judge Judy, attracted almost 10 million viewers daily by 2008. They were unable to quit observing. Judy was criticized by Judge Joseph Wapner as being impolite, and other employees claimed that she was too harsh. Judy didn't flinch, though. She said that she had no time for mudslinging. In a strange way, the pandemonium strengthened her. Her direct courtroom demeanor, which was limited to a $5,000 claims cap, turned into a form of addicting television. After 14 seasons, Judy's first daytime Emmy for Outstanding Legal Program was eventually awarded in 2010. Even so, there was disagreement surrounding that particular event. An instance involving a juvenile defendant caused indignation. The teenager had been questioned by Judy about damaging a cat and smashing TVs. And she faced swift criticism when she forced a homeless youngster to cry on air. It was deemed degrading by some. Wapner stepped out once more, claiming that she was conceited and had misrepresented the ideal of a true judge. Nevertheless, many continued to observe. There were no ethics investigations started, and by that time, more than 2,000 episodes had been shown, with an average of 6 to 7 million people every day. Judy defended her conduct by claiming that she was instilling responsibility in young people. TV wasn't the only thing in her courtroom. Justice and drama came together there, and the drama paid off. Then, a startling legal development in 2013 turned the tide. It was Judy who brought the lawsuit this time. She filed a $1.7 million malpractice lawsuit against her previous attorney, Fred Fenster, which dates back to 1999. The show's two producers, Sandy Sprechman and Kay Switzer, claimed that Fenster had not obtained the royalties they had been promised. According to Judy's testimony, she had verbally consented to include them in the agreement. Nonetheless, Fenster's poor management caused a financial mess. Instead, it became a struggle for the show's huge riches. Because Fenster had represented several parties, there were significant concerns about conflicts of interest. Despite the case's final quiet settlement, the effects were felt widely. A related case that sought $5 million in profits was won by CBS in 2022. From the sales of libraries. Although Judy's business flourished and her net worth surpassed $440 million, the entire incident demonstrated how easily even a major television network may be undermined by a breach of legal trust. The show reached a new level of strangeness in 2015 when it included a scenario involving identity theft and celebrity impersonators. A manager allegedly defrauded fans and the artist by hiring a phony performer for a $5,000 gig. A peculiar small claims lawsuit quickly got out of hand. Discovered identity theft and fraudulent contracts. The FBI intervened. There was an explosion of interest in the media, and Vice even investigated if some Judge Judy cases, including one from 2010, were faked. Which had to do with appearance costs, broken TVs, and a cat. Each episode of that season drew an average of 8 million viewers. That year, there were more than 100 impersonators detained nationwide. Judy had revealed the ease of faking celebrity for financial gain. It was a whole different courtroom. Not all of it was justice. On camera, there was a live crime investigation. In 2019, after 23 seasons and more than 6,000 episodes, Judy shocked viewers by announcing the program would conclude after its 25th season in 2021. But there was more to that announcement than that. She had discreetly sold CBS the show's archive, which included over 5,200 hours of footage, in 2017 for a sum of between $95 and $100 million. That was a calculated move. Streaming was increasing while syndicating was declining. Judy created a profitable empire out of her courtroom archive. Her yearly income reached $47 million. The news devastated viewers, and social media exploded. Some people felt deceived. Judy, however, wasn't done. All creative control was retained when she debuted a new program on IMDb TV called Judy Justice. By 2019, over 10,000 cases had been heard in her courtroom, rendering verdicts worth millions of dollars. TV history is replete with her scathing one-liners, such as "eat morons like you for breakfast." The transaction did more than simply end a phase. It validated Judy's creation of an empire valued at more than $1 billion. She had married prosecutor Ronald Levy in 1964, long before all of this had happened. She had just graduated from law school in New York and was only 21. 2 kids were born to them. In 1966 Jamie and in 1968 Adam. The marriage, however, soured. Ronald preferred that she remain at home. He referred to her work in law as a pastime. Judy never forgot that. After balancing ambition and children for 12 years, she finally quit in 1976. She later claimed that her biggest error was not leaving sooner. She became enraged after the divorce. After devoting herself to her career, she was appointed a judge in 1982. She thought of it as a turning moment years later. Her kids were doing well. Jamie went on to become a business executive. Adam went on to become a district attorney, just like her. Jerry then arrived. She first encountered Judy Sheindlin in a club in 1977. Despite his separation, he remained legally married. Judy did not hold off. She advised him to finalize his divorce and wed her. He did. They merged their families and appeared to be unstoppable until her father passed away in 1990, at which point Judy felt overburdened. She mentioned she didn't have Jerry's support. She presented him with divorce documents the following day. Suddenly, 13 years came to an end. However, love endured. Following some hard realities in couples therapy, they got married again a year later, in 1991. Later, Judy made a joke about how males are the same regardless. They have spent 48 years together by 2025, excluding that 1-year sabbatical. In March 2011, Judge Judy Sheindlin, then 68, started talking in slow motion while taping her show in Los Angeles. Her eyes appeared blurry, and her sentences were slurred, and the team recognized right once that something was up. She had dismissed her complaint of double vision earlier that day. She attempted to get through it while the cameras rolled. However, someone contacted 911 behind the scenes without her consent. Paramedics thought she might be experiencing a small stroke, which is a transient ischemic episode that frequently occurs right before a large stroke, when they arrived. The following day, she was discharged after being taken to the hospital and tested. Judy then stated that it might have been a small TIA that went away shortly or dehydration. For fans accustomed to her savage wit, this was her first display of vulnerability. More than just sympathy was aroused when the incident was broadcast and caused a wave of worry to sweep the internet. Lives were saved. Judy herself cautioned ladies against ignoring warning flags. Strokes harmed more than 795,000 Americans in that year. And a lot of them began with slurred speech or blurred vision, just like she did. 2020 then arrived. With the spread of COVID-19, Judge Judy lost her prominence. By July, the number of cases had risen to over 179,000 in New Jersey alone. There were rumors circulating. She had canceled tapings and public appearances, and the tabloids once again rushed in, raising concerns that she might be gravely ill at the age of 77. That she was weak. But she returned with much more vigor before the year was out. She gave daily yoga, a rigorous diet of 1 to 200 calories, and online workouts credit for her recovery. She said that her immunity had never been stronger and that she had shed 10 pounds. Everyone was astonished by her return. It was more than just a return, it was a change. Her narrative became a symbol of perseverance as the pandemic continued to run, with 17 deaths per day in some regions of the country. Her routine motivated millions of viewers to start making healthier lifestyle choices. She made her most significant career decision on November 1, 2021. Following the conclusion of her landmark Judge Judy series, she made her formal streaming debut with a brand new show called Judy Justice, which debuted on IMDb TV, later rebranded as Amazon Freevee, rather than cable or network TV. Fans were shocked to learn that she was bringing her granddaughter, Sarah Rose, a recent law school graduate. In her role as the law clerk, Sarah contributed to the show's softer, more intimate feel by assisting with case notes and legal research. There were millions of views for the first episode. Judy Justice demonstrated her dominance even in the absence of CBS by accumulating over 75 million streaming hours in a matter of months. At Culver Studios in Los Angeles, she worked around epidemic constraints to shoot 120 episodes in record time. How much does she make? A staggering $47 million annually, anyway. She made $100 million from the sale of her episode library, as if that weren't enough. She not only changed platforms with that move, but she also changed the rules of courtroom television. Her reign is still going strong in 2025. Judy Justice is a streaming behemoth, having received over 150 million hours of viewing since its debut. She became a North American mainstay after Canadian broadcasters like City TV joined in. Real celebrities fought in a court case in one of the show's most popular episodes in early 2025. With all costs covered, the lawsuit brought the litigants to Culver Studios and had twice the typical $5,000 prize. In June of the same year, the show won its third Emmy, and the production disclosed Judy's 3-month filming schedule of 120 episodes. Resurfaced were stories regarding her previous cases, such as the $22 million countersuit she filed against her former business partners in 2020. Judy's Freevee channel and on-demand access completely surpassed traditional TV in terms of popularity by August 19, 2025.